In today's lesson, we're looking at two more ways to prove triangles congruent: angle, side, angle, and angle, angle, side. Both of these postulates and theorems involve two pairs of angles and one pair of sides. The difference between the two is where the side is in relation to the angles. In angle, side, angle, the side has to be included between the two angles. So in this example, if angle A is congruent to angle D and angle B is congruent to angle E, I have two pairs of congruent angles. Now, in order to use angle, side, angle, that side has to be between the two angles. It has to be the included side. So the side that has to be congruent is going to have to be AB and DE. AB and DE are the included side. They're the side between my two angles. If this is true, then that's enough to prove that my two triangles are congruent to each other. An angle, angle side, I'm going to have two pair of congruent angles just like in angle, side, angle. So angle A is going to be congruent to angle D, and angle B is going to be congruent to angle E. But instead of the side being included between the two angles, the side that's going to be congruent is going to be away from the two angles. So BC and EF. Here I have angle, angle, side. Be careful, I cannot call this angle, side, angle. If I go this way around the triangle, I've skipped an angle and a side along the way. In order to name this theorem, I have to go around the triangle by skipping the least amount of parts of the triangle as possible. So I have to go angle, skip a side, angle, side. If I go the other way and say angle, side, skip an angle and a side, angle, that's not correct. This angle is not included between, or this side is not included between the two angles. So this is an example of angle, angle, side. Let's look at some examples. State the postulate or theorem that can be used to prove the triangle is congruent. Well, in this first example, we have a pair of congruent angles, a second pair of congruent angles, and we need one more piece of information. And in this case, it's this shared side. It's this reflexive side. So this example is angle, side, angle. The side is between my pairs of congruent angles. So this is an example where I would use angle, side, angle. In this example, I have a pair of congruent angles and a pair of congruent sides. And my third piece of information is this shared side, this reflexive side. So this is an example of side, angle, side. Side, angle, side. The angle is included between my two congruent sides. So I would use side, angle, side to prove these triangles congruent. In number 3, we have a pair of congruent angles and a pair of congruent sides. And we have vertical angles. The way that these triangles are drawn, we have vertical angles, and vertical angles are congruent. So we have two pairs of congruent angles and a pair of congruent sides. So the question is this angle, angle, side, or angle, side, angle? Well, for it to be angle, side, angle, the side would have to be between the two congruent angles. Well, this side is not between the two congruent angles. I cannot say angle, side, angle. I have to say angle, angle, side. Different than example number 4. I have a pair of congruent angles I have a pair of congruent sides, and I have vertical angles that are congruent. Now in this example, my side is between my congruent angles. So this is angle, side, angle. Number 5, I have a right angle, which means that this line is perpendicular to this line. Well, if these lines are perpendicular, this is a right angle, and so is this one. Since these are both right angles, they're going to be congruent to each other. And I have a pair of congruent sides, and I have a pair of shared reflexive sides. So example number 5 is side, angle, side. Number 6, again, I have a right angle, which means that these two lines are perpendicular, which means that this is also a right angle. And these two right angles will be congruent to each other. I'm also given that these two angles are congruent, and I have a pair of shared sides. So this is an example of angle, angle, side. Angle, angle, side. The side is not included between the two congruent angles. It's away from the two congruent angles. So this is angle, angle, side.